Good evening, my fellow compatriots, my fellow citizens, my fellow Gambians. It's high time we have a civic conversation. There is political action, there is civic action. Political actions are generally partisan. Civic actions are generally nationally oriented. And it's high time we Gambians have a chat that is civic oriented to make sure that our country is on the straight and narrow. Our country is on the right path. We are idly sitting by, watching the dismantling of whatever is left of this decimated civil service that has gone through hell over the past 20 odd years. And that is not right. The civil service as it is today lacks security of tenure. The civil service as it is today lacks competence. The civil service as it is today lacks motivation. We all decided that there were 3 to 4 fundamental things we wanted as Gambians for voting Jammeh out. One was to end self-perpetuating rule by making sure we have a constitution that clearly spells out a 2-term limit of a maximum of 2 terms of 5 years. Secondly, we wanted a comprehensive civil service reform, including security sector reform, because the two go hand in hand. Thirdly, we wanted to increase and improve on the democratic space to make sure that we have democratic plurality in the Gambia. Well, we need to ask ourselves, after 48 months, what have we achieved? Yes, it's almost 48 months. No civil service reform, no meaningful security sector reform, because the murderers, the arch enablers, are still in the system with our weapons, toting them and looking at some of the victims in the eye, and nothing is coming out of it. The democratic space that we wanted to improve on, we have seen what has happened at the assembly when the president's minions at the assembly, because they're not honorable for me to call them honorable, they are minions, adults who behave like toddlers, usurp the will of the people and scrap our aspirations to have a referendum to vote on a draft, all because of one thing: the lack of us including the term limit to allow the president to have a possible of more than 10 years in office. It's a shame, Barrow, but more so it's a shame to the parliamentarians who accepted such a thing. Now back to the issue of the civil service. We have seen what happened to Cherno Marena. Very shameful, very, very shameful. And we all know for a fact it's not because of his incompetence, because he is capable. It's not because of his loyalty to country, because he is a true patriot. It's all about him not serving the whims and caprices of individuals, or an individual whose interest collides with that of the greater good. Cherno Marena will not be prostituted. He is not one of those who will do what it takes to make certain people happy. Cherno Marena is a true son of the soil. Cherno Marena is a human being of conscience. Cherno Marena happens to have an impeccable character that we want our fellow citizens to have. So the Secretary General, I think we need to look deeper in terms of what is going on with the dismantling of whatever is left of a decimated civil service that we inherited from Jammeh. Gambia deserves better, but we cannot get better when people who are entrusted with power, not only political power, but bureaucrats, choose to be enablers of one person and one person alone, the president. That is wrong. It shouldn't be accepted, and we must put a stop to it. Wanting to put a stop to it, it's not a political issue, it's a civic issue. We Gambians need to come together, irrespective of party affiliation, irrespective of political loyalty, and look at Gambia first and ask ourselves, was it necessary to boot Jammeh out if everything that's happening today is inimical of how Jammeh ruled the Gambia? What has changed, Gambia? What has changed? This is a question we need to ask ourselves. We need to ask ourselves, what has changed in our dearly beloved Gambia since Jammeh left? Well, for a start, President Adama Barrow is driving a fleet of cars as expensive as our universities. President Adama Barrow is being fed with over $150,000 a day. What a shame. President Adama Barrow is indifferent to our plight. What a shame. And we all collectively fought to make sure we have a brighter and better tomorrow. But that tomorrow is as dark as the days of Yahya Jammeh, minus the killing. And it's not because he loves us. It's not because he doesn't want to. We gave that freedom to ourselves, and we're trying to guard it. But the best way we can guard this freedom is for us to collectively come up as citizens of this going concern, as concerned Gambians, to tell this president and his administration, ne boom ñu yap. Yes, the president is taking us for a ride, but we need to stop what he's doing to us. And the only way we can stop it is massive civic action. Massive civic action. We cannot continue to live a life of servitude. A life of servitude is a life where what we want is not happening by the servants we put in place to do what we want. The president and everyone he appoints happens to be our servants. Now our servants cannot dictate and decide our destiny. That has to come to an end. But it will only come to an end if we stop the selfishness in us, if we stop the opportunism in us, and if we realize the responsibility of citizenship. We Gambians need to understand that we have a moral and a national responsibility to our motherland. It's first a moral, and that moral responsibility should be invoked by our conscience. The national responsibility is we are Gambians, and Gambians do have a right, and that right comes with responsibility, and that responsibility must be discharged diligently by all of us. We need to discharge our responsibility of citizenship diligently without ill will, affection, fear, or favor. It's a shame that when the likes of Nyang Jai gets on the airwaves to talk, a lot of people will say, oh, they're disgruntled, oh, they're angry, oh, they belong to a party. That's nonsense. My pride as a Gambian has been robbed by this administration. Yes, and other administrations in the past, including Yahya Jammeh. But the time has come for us to say, no one is going to rob our dignity as Gambians. We should stand tall. We should be proud of our nation. And being proud of our nation means we stand for what is right and denounce what is wrong. What is happening in our motherland today is shameful. What we are seeing happening day in, day out is shameful. Imagine your president, my president, our president, elected by us after blood was shed in this country. Elected by us after we struggled sits down in a gathering, an individual stands in front of him with the audacity to say, I am telling our neighbors in Senegal to cross and come get documents in Gambia and vote. I expected that the president and or his entourage should have gotten up and denounced that, because they're discrediting our electoral system. They are flagrantly being willful participants of people breaking the rules and laws of our land. What a shame. But then again, if you don't know, you don't know. And that's why someone like me, I believe every human being has a right, especially every Gambian has a right to seek office. Mr. President, you have the right to seek the highest office in this land, being the presidency. But Mr. President, equally, you made a pledge, you made a commitment, you agreed with us that you are going to do this to allow Gambia to cross the bridge, and that bridge is called a transition. Well, you haven't done the honorable thing after 36 months. But as tolerant as we are, we have accepted that you can go and finish the legal term that was given to you by the Constitution. There are two things here, Mr. President: constitutional supremacy and moral obligation. You have the constitutional backing to be here for 5 years, but you lack the moral authority to be here for 5 years, because you looked at us in the face, Mr. President, and you gave us a finger. How? Everything you agreed and negotiated with us, and we voted you on that, you reneged on it without even a blink of your eye. Well, you have clearly stated and shown Gambians who you are. But yes, the opportunists who are lurking behind you like vultures and owls cannot see the wrong you have perpetrated on Gambians. Well, history is here, and history is going to judge you, and it will not judge you kindly, because you haven't been kind to your fellow Gambians. You haven't been truthful to your fellow Gambians, and you haven't been fair to your fellow Gambians, Mr. President. See, you are not the problem. The problem is people amongst our midst who are enabling you, because you are one and we outnumber you. But unfortunately, many amongst our midst are the ones who are enabling you to really give us a finger. I don't know how you sleep at night, Mr. President, but if there is any iota of conscience in you, and you hear your voice echo in your mind, you will know that you have done injustice to the Gambia. We are more divided today than December 2nd. Thanks to you, because of your narrowly self-centered, selfish desire to self-perpetuate beyond your commitment to the Gambian. Mr. President, it's time we Gambians get up and deal with you. We have everything to gain and nothing to lose, because dignity is priceless, and you are robbing our dignity day in, day out. That's not what we bargained for, and that's not why I elected you. I don't know about anybody else, but Nyang Jai elected you to help usher in the dawn of a new day. And that dawn started with three things: civil service reform, started with security sector reform, and a constitutional reform. And at the heart and soul of that constitutional reform was term limits. Mr. President, do you love us? Mr. President, do you care about the well-being of your citizens? Mr. President, do you understand our history? Mr. President, do you understand from whence we came collectively as Gambians? Mr. President, do you care about the death of Solo Sandeng? Mr. President, do you care about Okoro Cisse? Because if so, you should have wanted us to have a meaningful transition so that life will be better for the younger generations. Most of us, I consider us to be part of what I consider to be the arrested development generation. We were 17, 18, 19 when Yaya Jammeh came in. We've lost a good chunk of our lives. And that's why I called it the arrested development generation. Therefore, Mr. President, you are duty bound to give the next generation of Gambians a better hope, not a better future, a better hope. And that hope starts with a good governance architecture and agenda. And that is premised on civil service reform, not you firing people like you have fired Cherno Marena or displaced Cherno Marena. And we all know that it has everything to do with the draft constitution. Let's call a spade a spade. Mr. President, all cannot be for you, and you for you. Public servants should be selfless. Public servants should be servants of the people. Don't allow the people to serve you, because today we are serving you. $150,000 is a day to run your household. It's shameful. The Prime Minister of Canada gets $3,000, Canadian dollars for that matter, a month for his groceries. Any sitting president at the White House pays for food at the White House just like a hotel. Even if the law allows you $150,000 a day, Mr. President, you should have the fortitude, the courage of conviction and conscience to know that Samba Pate of Nungu Kebe, Fatu Menga of Jokadu, Aisatu Samba of Kuntawur cannot even have one square meal a day. And that is conscience. And that's what people with the pedigree of public service do. They think of others before they think of themselves. Mr. President, think Gambia, think Gambians. Whether you served us for 5 days or 15 years, you would have been remembered as the one who helped, played, and participated in booting a brutal brute in the name of Yaya Jammeh. The weight that you had with us Gambians December 1st has significantly eroded because of your selfish desire to self-perpetuate. Mr. President, I love Gambia more than I love you. So I will look at you in the eye and say, you have wronged your country. Your actions are not patriotic, and your actions are self-centered. And that self-centered nature of your actions is really colliding with the greater good's interest. And the greater good's interest must not suffer, especially in the hands of the citizen-in-chief. You see, Mr. President, there are two types of Gambians. The Gambian who cares less about an office you can accord them, or perks and benefits you can give them. They don't care. You have another group of Gambians who care about public contracts you give them. Yes, businessmen in this country who care about public contracts you give them, and they have turned to be dumb, silent, and indifferent to the plight of the Gambian. They know we are suffering, but they don't want to upset the status quo. That's one group of Gambian. The other group is quote-unquote educated Gambians that you offer jobs, and they know right and wrong and don't want to tell you what is wrong about you, because they love those pajeros, they love those free coupons, those free telephones, perks, and the opportunity to be induced by corrupt businessmen. Thirdly, you have sycophants, people who just want to be close to power for no good reason. And that's why we find our country in the mess we find ourselves today. That group of Gambian who cares nothing but a narrowly defined interest. And unfortunately, their interest and your interest happen to collide, because your interest is narrowly defined relative to the greater good's interest. And yet still you are blind of the fact that you cannot see our interests. We all know that this draft constitution, the heart and soul of everything we are complaining about this draft constitution, is the retroactiveness of the 2 terms, so that this particular term you're serving will not be counted. Mr. President, have some conscience and think that everything the Gambian fought for to put jammeh out was to end self-perpetuation. And all you are doing is to promote self-perpetuation, Mr. President. We have put food for you on the table to eat, called a 5-year term. And even after that 5 year, you have an opportunity by law for another 5-year term. So why do you want retroactiveness, Mr. President? Think, be fair, love your country, care about your country, and stop fooling Gambians. You cannot love your country when you don't want what's best for your citizens. What's best for your citizens is for us to go on a referendum and decide the type of Gambia we want and how we want it, not a Gambia that is induced by politicians to kill our draft. Mr. President, we are not blind. We knew exactly how the draft was killed at the parliament, and you didn't even utter a word to promote that draft. You didn't utter a word to champion for that draft. You didn't even make a pronouncement to ask the parliamentarians to support a bill brought forth to the parliament by your government, by your attorney general, because you wanted it dead. And yes, dead on arrival. And not only that, Mr. President, your own party militants were celebrating the death of our draft constitution and know the endorsement of what has happened, Mr. President. You see, Mr. President, it's time we Gambians look at you in the eye and talk to you and tell you the truth. We don't need an appointment to come to your office. It's our office. But we know the type of Gambians you want to see, and surely we are not those type of Gambians, because we will not tell you what you want to hear. We will tell you that the shit stinks. And that's what we want to change respectfully, Mr. President. You need to understand that hadn't it been that we the people didn't vote, you would not have been. And that's why you need to show us some respect. And that respect is to give us what we want. 48 months, Mr. President, we don't have a civil service reform. 48 months, we don't have a meaningful security sector reform. That's why we still have murderers and killers in our midst. 48 months, Mr. President, we still have people that are despicable because they cause hefty financial losses to the greater good of this society. And yet still today, they are your strange bedfellows. Mr. President, we have seen businessmen that were in cahoots with Yahya Jammeh to rob the state. Today they are closer to you than ever before, at our expense, robbing the state and the people and the poor Gambian again. So we need not come to your office to sit with you, but we surely know that you will get to hear our message. Kuy ñëw nag ba ci diggi marché di fa dee moo taagee boppam, so ñun joowuñ la. We're not backbiting, Mr. President. We are venting our frustration based on the expectation that you have killed our dreams of building a better Gambia. My heart bleeds whenever I'm in front of my camera talking to you, because I lost a lot in wanting to build a better Gambia, Mr. President. I've lost a lot in wanting to build a better Gambia. I've been a victim of jammeh, and yet still this government didn't even think of paying me, and I'm not complaining. But yet still, Mr. President, you can squander our money by giving yourself $150,000 a day to spend on food. Mr. President. Mr. President. So ñu bëgga suñ boppa, and it's high time. We, all of us, need to come out and tell the president the truth. We are not happy. We are not happy with the status quo, because the status quo didn't do what they were supposed to do. And that was not giving us roads, hospital, electricity. It was giving us the plan to start rebuilding our country. Security sector, civil service, a better constitution. But you have forgotten about that, and you're running helter-skelter politicking at the taxpayers' expense, Mr. President. That's not right. We need to tell you, you are not fair with this country. Because if you were fair with Gambia, you will think twice and ask yourself that this country gave you more than you ever thought you could have had in 10 lifetimes. And after giving you all that, fayal narbi horomam why? Do us better and do us right. And doing us right is stop hiring enablers who are known economic criminals and vandals. Hiring soldiers who have used our weapons against us. Mr. President, I'm talking to you from my heart because I'm angry. And a lot of my fellow Gambians are angry. And don't believe the hype you see out there that you think people love you. Genuine Gambians are not in agreement with the way and manner in which this country is moving. And it's not political, Mr. President. Some of us are not wearing political lenses. We're wearing national lenses. Understand that my cry, my plea is for a better Gambia, not better any party. If I want a better Gambia, Mr. President, I am blind of political loyalty. My loyalty is to state. My loyalty is to country. My loyalty is to the future generations of this country. And Mr. President, you are duty bound to make sure that the future generations of Gambians don't suffer the same fate you and I suffered. But you have taken more loans in their names, only to give it to contractors who are not giving Gambians value for money. And yet still, you want 30 years down the line, young Gambians to be paying for that. Think, and think whether that is right. Mr. President, kula ne Gambia nehna nahnala, kula ne Gambia nge doh nahnala, kula ne yange ligay nahnala. Ligay du dem ne danga tali Banjul. Loolu pour nga mbaamal nit ñi la, te ñi nangoo nekk mbaam ñooy jëlee noonu liggéey. Xam nga luy liggéey? Result xale yi ci school si mu tane. Xam nga luy liggéey? ñi fee am diabetic a high blood ak di soxla what you ma call it again, they having kidney issues, needing dialysis, buñ dee unnecessary death. That is what I consider working when the human index of this country changes for the positive good. That is liggéey. We don't want roads. We want better primary health and preventive health. We want better education. We want an aware citizenship. We want a citizenry that is protected by able police and army. We want our civil servants to be incorruptible because they are well paid, well remunerated, and well trained. Mr. President, you haven't done none of those. So don't tell me you are walking. It's only people who are ignorant that will believe that you are walking by paving roads. And it's a shame hearing from your ministers, especially your Minister of Transport, telling us you have made more roads than Jammeh and Jawara combined. Gambians don't eat roads. Just like when someone tells me we have a positive GDP is growing, we don't eat GDP. Whatever you are calling development is not translating to the bread and butter of the average Gambian. Therefore, it's meaningless to us. And that wasn't even the reason why we brought you in. Mr. President, we brought you in to be the architect of the new Gambia. And the architect was to spearhead the reform agenda we wanted. And you have failed, and failed woefully, in planning, executing, and strategizing that reform agenda. And now you have got into a political mode to self-perpetuate. So, Mr. President, you have put yourself before us. And for that, you are in a collision course, on a collision course with the interests of the greater good of Gambians. It's high time the educated class in this country get up and enlighten each and every Gambian to know that our citizenship comes with responsibilities, and collectively we need to discharge those responsibilities and make sure we build a better Gambia to give to the Omar Njais, the Fatu Njais, the Samba Jobs of this country who are 5 years old today, 7 years old today. If not, we have collectively failed, just like this president have failed us, just like Yaya Jammeh has failed us. And when will the educated Gambian have the audacity and the courage of conviction not to be an apologist? When will the business class of this country wake up and tell this administration that we collectively as Gambians deserve better? You see, in this fair of nation building, we have the business leaders, we have the academic leaders, we have the religious and moral leaders and community leaders, and we have the political leaders. Gambia has had a total collapse and failure of leadership in all spheres of life. From the religious aspect, from the moral/community aspect, from the business/economic operators, we have collectively failed Gambia, and it's a shame. We are more educated today than our forefathers, but our forefathers had the fortitude and courage of conviction to stand for what is right and denounce what is wrong. When will we have the balls? When will we have the balls to say that Gambia has been railroaded? Gambia has suffered a stunted growth. Gambia has been derailed, and it has to be put again on the right track, i.e. with our morals, i.e. with our religious intonation, i.e. with our political orientation. What are we going to do? And our education. What are we going to do, and when will we wake up and stop this selfishness that I am not affected? Well, I will tell you one thing. It's either you're affected or you're inflicted. No one is immune. The people stealing from our coffers are affected just like you and I are. So a bad Gambia, a worse Gambia, an underdeveloped Gambia makes all of us suffer in silence. And we need to stop that. We need to stop that. We need to wake up and take the responsibility of citizenship seriously. The president is getting away with murder because all of us are complaining in silence rather than having a massive civic action to tell the president, the same way we line up to vote for you is the same way we can boot you out if you don't do what you ought to do. But silence is consent. And the overwhelming silent majority of this country are the problem of this country. Because we should not suffer in silence. We should be enraged and get up and ask for our pound of flesh, and ask these people, our political leaders, to give Caesar, we the people, we are Caesar, what is due unto Caesar. Our political class ought to give us what is ours. And we can only get what is ours if we ask for what is ours. Let us stop the hypocrisy. We collectively know this shit stinks. We collectively know that our country has run aground. We collectively know Gambia is not moving. And yet still we collectively want to suffer in silence? We are not ignorant. We're self-centered egomaniacs collectively as a people. And that's what we ought to change. If not, we should be ashamed looking at the younger generations of Gambians in the face, knowing we haven't done nothing better to give them their inheritance of a better country. Adama Barrow is not our problem. We are Adama Barrow's problem because we're babysitting him, we're bootlicking him, and we're enabling him collectively. That needs to change, and if it doesn't change, we should shut up. Either Gambians are happy getting their dignity robbed by people who know nothing about nation building, or we are happy being prostituted and pimped by economic gangsters who are not only robbing us but robbing future generations of Gambians. When will this nyaka faida from us collectively stop? When will we realize that we're allowing people to pimp us? When will we realize we're allowing people to destitute us? When will we realize that we are dignified Gambians who deserve a better lifestyle? When will we realize that our grandparents and our fathers had a better livelihood and lives than we are having today? When will we realize that the good-for-nothings are spearheading or driving this bus called Gambia when the people who are in the know are taking a back seat? It's a shame, and it's an affront to our dignity and our nationhood and our pride to call ourselves Gambians. You see, Gambia is a badge, and that badge must be worn with pride, and we should stand tall. We should raise our heads up high and say, I am proud to be a Gambian. And the moment you say you are proud to be a Gambian, you have a duty to country, and that duty must be discharged diligently. And in discharging the duty, you should be fearful, you should be fiery, and you know what? You should be blind to personal and individual loyalty and put your loyalty to the state. And when we put our loyalty to state, we are indifferent on who we trample on. Only then and then will we build a better Gambia. Our mother Gambia is crying today because we have collectively failed her, especially quote unquote. We the people who think we are lettered because we lack scruples, we lack morality, we lack conscience. We know right and wrong. Imagine people who are taking loans in the name of this country, knowing that these monies are going to be squandered. Educated Gambian, causing economic mayhem to not only us, but future generations of Gambians. And yet still they don't have the conscience or the courage of conviction to understand that wrong is wrong. Imagine someone putting in a budget $150,000 a day for the president to spend on his feeding. The lowest ebb of morality and bankruptcy of conscience and scruple. Lettered Gambian, educated Gambian. And yes, the business class in this country, you are equally part of Gambia's problems. Because for your narrowly defined profitability's interests, you are aligning with what is decimating your country. You're aligning with what is wrong about your country, and yet still you don't have the scruples, the conscience, the courage of conviction to know that what you're doing is wrong. Who is going to bail out the cart called Gambia? The ship is sinking, and a group of Gambians are indifferent. A group of Gambians are poking holes on that boat, and a group of Gambians are just screaming and shouting, and others are just dumb and silent. When will this madness end? We have seen our COVID pandemic funds being squandered, and we will continue to pay. We have heard they have given rice, oil, and sugar in our names to people, and yet still these people don't exist unless they are Gambians out there different from the physical Gambians we know. We have seen our mega resources being squandered. We have seen NAWEC, a company, prostituted the First Lady's office by giving them $475,000 or $700,000, yet still that company winning a tender at NAWEC and being one of the highest bidders, and yet still everyone in this country keeps quiet? What is wrong? Where are the sons and daughters of this country who should be screaming for her? Who cares about this country? Why is it that Gambia is suffering and suffering in silence when Gambia has sons and daughters? What will it take for you, the Gambian, to get up and fight for your mother when your mother is being looted, maimed, raped by your siblings? Are you good sons and daughters of your country? Do you care about the well-being of the greater good? Yes, we need to do something. The educated Gambian, every one of us is folding our arms because we either looking for an appointment from them or we don't want to upset the status quo. Yes, both Gambians in and out of this country. You have a moral obligation to get up, rise up, and be counted when you see wrong. And we know everything that's happening in this country is wrong. But all of us want to be quiet because we don't want to be seen as rebel rousers. We don't want to be seen as the problem. But yeah, you will see a Nyanjai in person and whisper in his ear, keep on doing what you're doing. What a shame. That's not what Nyanjai is looking for. Nyanjai is looking to recruit Gambians who can invoke the collective conscience of Gambians to get up and build a better country. But you know right and you know wrong, but you don't want to be part of the solution because you don't want to upset the status quo. Hypocrisy. This is what the educated Gambian is. Hypocritical beings who are not good for nothing but their narrowly selfish interest of looking for an appointment or trying to befriend a status quo that is not good for the greater good. What a shame. What a shame, Gambia. What a shame. Nañ leen am jom, am fula, am fayda. Buñ amoon fayda jom, Adama Barrow duñu téye di ñu def lim ñuy def. Why we have over 400 of us lined up to be the next Minister of Finance, the next Solicitor General, the next Minister of Interior, the next Minister of Defense, only to enable and perpetuate bad behavior. And yet still, we call ourselves enlightened Gambians. Yet still, we call ourselves educated people. Yet still, we call ourselves patriots. Let's think and think who we are. We have failed our country. We have failed the next generation of Gambians. And we haven't done right to our motherland, the Gambia. Our president has failed us. Point blank, period, straight and simple. He has failed us. What we agreed and what he is doing today is night and day. But why is it that everyone is quiet about it? It's not a political action, it's a civic action. I don't expect this from politicians. I expect each and every one of us to get up and tell this government that we are not happy with the status quo. We are not happy with the corruption. We are not happy with the ineptitude. We are not happy with the demagoguery that's happening. We are not happy with the sycophancy that's happening. We are not happy with rewarding bad behavior by bringing in economic gangsters, by bringing in people in uniform who brutalize Gambians back to office. Please, I am begging you in the name of Gambia, all of us, that when we put our heads on the pillow tonight, to please reflect and take our responsibility of citizenship seriously and help to collectively build our country, both Gambians in and out of the country. Because I know a lot of educated Gambians working in international forums today who don't even want to upset the status quo, not because of their employment, because they don't want to be seen as rebel rousers. And yet still they can sit in camera with Enyang Jai and tell him everything that's wrong in this country. You see, that's our problem. We ought to fix our country collectively. And in fixing our country, we should be blind to personalities. We should be blind to relationships. And we should be blind to kinship. And look at our collective denominator called the Gambia. She has suffered and she is still suffering thanks to our silence, collective silence. Let's stop that. Let's build a better Gambia. And let's tell the status quo that they have failed, and they have woefully failed the expectations of the people who voted them in to usher in a dawn of a new day by giving us the infrastructure to build a country. We never asked Adam Barrow to build a country. We asked him to help us with a blueprint and infrastructure for subsequent administrations to use and build a Gambia. On that note, Gambia, I want to invoke our collective conscience to understand that our motherland has been raped, maimed by economic gangsters enabled by public servants that we voted in and appointed into office. God bless you all, and I do hope this will be the beginning of the change we wanted. If not, we have all failed Gambia, and we will not inherit a better Gambia to the next generation of Gambians. So long, I love you all, and I love my country and my fellow compatriots. Good night.